get back to what happened when you were just talking about Kamala Harris, because what she did again was very crypto. You know what I'm saying? She sponsored something cryptic. You know, as a crypto fascist or crypto whatever. You know, taking away. It was very cryptic what she did. These progressives, these Democrats, the establishment, fam. I've been telling people left and right, it's more about what fam says. We can't think Democrat. We can't think Republican. We got to know it's the establishment. They work together and lines are being drawn. I mean, and even still, when it came to the repealing repealing the veto of Trump's NDAA, yeah, I mean, you had the Squad and Ro Khanna and everybody in the House and Tulsi and Massey and all the people that we knew vote against the veto, but all the establishment, lock, stock, and barrel, you know, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz's and then the Nancy Pelosi's and the Adam Schiff's, and they overrid this veto, which they hide behind it's going to be for the troops. We can't leave them in harm's way. When we know the majority of this defense budget is going right into contractors' pockets. It's not just about the troops. Very little of it goes to the troops. And once again, they find ways to throw out their propaganda, trick their constituents to think that they're fighting for them, but really at the end of the day, they're screwing you right there. So let's go over Nicole Alexander Fisher's tweets. And I think it's really good to know because somebody popular tweeted her and somebody used her tweet on the floor of the Senate. So it's really cool. But she put up, here's what happened today in the Senate regarding the $2,000 checks for anyone confused. The two items on the agenda are overriding Trump's NDAA vote and the stimulus payment increase. Now, previously, these were passed inside the House. So then they were moved over to the Senate. They hit McConnell's desk. Sanders and Markey plan to leverage one to get the other, but Dem leadership may stop them, and we'll get into that. Issue number one, overriding Trump's NDAA veto. Last week, Trump vetoed our massive NDAA defense budget that Congress passed. There are numerous concerns with the legislation, but Trump is focused on repealing Section 230 and blocking the renaming of the Confederate name bases. And that is true, by the way. So if you want any comments on that, I mean, that is the majority of that bill. I've always said I think that Trump has more of a nationalist mentality more than a globalist mentality. Not that he doesn't want to fund war. He'll certainly fund his buddies in Israel and Saudi Arabia. But there are areas to select. I think he doesn't want to spend so much money over there, maybe come home. But your thoughts on that, fam?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm more interested in the 230 section. I mean, I think he's obviously playing to his base here. But the fact that, we're looking at this as how the Democrats don't use their leverage is extremely important because the Democrats obviously were unable to do that. They completely just rejected that. And a lot of people are saying, well, that's unfortunate that the Democrats did that. I can't believe they did that. They constantly do this time and time again. Every single time at every turn, they bend over, they fold. Unlike the Republican Party, when they want something, they don't fold. So again, this is the issue with the Democratic Party. And yet we still have progressives who refuse to demand this Medicare for all floor vote. So it just goes back to me with the inability of people on the supposed left, because it's not the left, right, to actually garner some leverage, generate some power, know how to negotiate. You don't go into the negotiating table without first having something to hold over. And what happened with the Joe Biden transition and what's happening right now at this very moment is that progressives don't have any electoral power because they've constantly capitulated to the Democratic centrists and the Democratic Party.
Yep, and make no mistake about it, McConnell didn't want this going through. He's a deficit hawk, just like his buddy Joe Biden, who might be the president. We think is going to be the president. They're both deficit hawks. They didn't want to give the extra money out there. You know what I'm saying? Even McConnell on the floor saying, we don't have to give socialism to the rich. My name is Elmer Fudd, and I'm your Kentucky representative. But we don't have to give socialism to the rich. And he was kind of talking to a point that should be made. But in his state, he has 10 of the most 28 poorest counties. 75% of his constituents in his state really need this $2,000 check, maybe even 80% of it. They really need this $2,000 check. So the fact that he's even taken out, some of the progressive lines saying, hey, we don't have to give this check to these rich people who are going to get it. And it's true, right? I mean, a lot of rich people don't work, so they don't have salary. And it's about your salary, whether you get this check or not. But they have a lot of money sitting in the stock market. My mom got a check last time. My mom's best friend got a check last time. They're millionaires. They don't need it. And they've even said to me, we don't need this check. So, I mean, there is something to look at there, but it is straight propaganda. And the Democrats, what they're going to do with this whole thing, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Chuck the Schmuck Schumer, all these people are going to point the finger and act like it's the Republicans that stopped this. And it was Mitch McConnell with, once again, within themselves, and we'll get to it, folded. They bent the knee again to the establishment. So we'll get to that too as well. So 230 right there. The NDAA is a must-pass piece of legislation. The military cannot be funded without it. Some Democrats and Republicans have imposed what is in the NDAA and voted against it last week, but passing this is largely bipartisan. Both parties want to override Trump's veto. Issue number 2, the stimulus increase from $600 to $2,000. Because Trump is now behind increasing the $600 payments to $2,000, the vast majorities of Democrats now support this. Previously, the Democrats didn't even put a survival check in the latest package before pushing the $600. Right. Something else to note, fam, right? We talked about this before when they were putting out their first package and the controlled House, Nancy Pelosi has the power. There wasn't even a check. It was unemployment benefit extension, but there wasn't even a check. Your thoughts there, fam?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the Democrats, a lot, like even some progressives are pretending like, oh, only Bernie is pushing this issue. Actually, he was initially pushing the $1,200, and you know, we know that Nancy Pelosi decided not to give Trump any win, so she completely refused to push anything higher at all, anything at all. And so now what we're looking at is that we're seeing that both parties are working together, and the Republicans are working against Trump. And you have Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders in agreement over $2,000 checks for people. It just goes to show you this is 2020. This is the year where all of this starts to make sense, and some of it doesn't make any sense. But you really, really see that it's irrelevant to talk about parties at this point. It's more of the individual issues and who is really is really a psychopath and who really isn't. At this point, $2,000 is the minimum that people should be getting, especially after 10 months of coronavirus and only one $1,200 check that not everybody got. So again, you're seeing the oligarchy. You're seeing the divide between the people and the establishment. And you said it yourself, Mitch McConnell's state, Kentucky, people need this stimulus. It's not a question about necessity. It's a question about how far they're willing to push people. And we've let it come this far. And it's very clear right now that the only battles we're having right now is between the people and the oligarchy itself. And we're quickly learning who's really on the side of people and who isn't. Those Democrats that initially were in line with Trump decided to fold as well. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, fam, I said there's always some rogue actors on the right. We have some of those libertarian-minded people. And, like, you know, you got this guy, Josh Hawley, who, once again, it's an unusual combination to see Senator Sanders and Josh Hawley working together to get money. But this guy was on the floor going after Zuckerberg, fighting for our civil liberties. He said he's going to protest, one of the only senators that said he's going to protest against McConnell's will. He's going to protest the election results, too, as well, on the 6th. It's just kind of weird to see a guy pushing for us to get $2,000 checks. He's on the right. He's pushing for civil liberties. He's pushing for fair elections. I mean, I wonder how he feels on getting out of the Afghan war. I'd like to see more about that. But that's the thing. It's like, what party is doing what? You know what I'm saying? Because we did have some people stand with us on the left, but then they folded when they had the chance. Let me read the rest of the stuff, the tweet, because Nicole Alexander Fisher. The House voted on both issue 1 and 2 last night. Both the override of Trump's NDAA veto and the stimulus increase passed the House. Both of these went to the Senate this morning. This morning, McConnell wanted a unanimous consent to override President Trump's veto for the NDAA without addressing the $2,000 payments in his desk. If each senator consented to support overriding Trump's NDAA veto, the Senate could close and everybody would have went home for the New Year's. Senator Bernie Sanders, though, and Senator Ed Markey both opposed this, stating that they will not unanimously consent to override Trump's NDAA veto unless the $2,000 stimulus increase is brought on the floor for a vote. McConnell was then forced to schedule a Senate vote tomorrow on the veto override. However, Senator Sanders may oppose this further and filibuster the vote until the end of the week, keeping the Senate in session until they pass the new year, preventing the senators from going home. Senator Sanders and Markey plan to filibuster this and delay the must-pass veto override until the floor vote occurs with those $2,000 payments. While Republicans in the Senate largely oppose increasing the payments, some, including Georgia senators up for re-election, moved to support it. Senator Schumer then tried to bring the Senate to a unanimous consent to the $2,000 payments. McConnell opposed this. He knew he was going to oppose this. This is what we talk about, kabuki theater from this guy. Calling for unanimous consent is not the same as the Senate floor vote. It's basically a shortcut to pass something without calling everyone in for a vote. McConnell then said the Senate would consider $2,000 payments if it includes a couple of the things for the Trump wish list, including the repeal of Section 230 and the NDAA, and opposing the renaming of the Confederate bases. However, Senator Sanders and Markey stated they want a clean bill. I want to pause here right now, fam, because I want your opinions about this right now. I don't know why they're married to, well, you answer this. Why are they married to protecting 230? And why I know they want to have these bases change their names because they're Confederate leaders and whatnot. But is that really that important if you have to give up those two things to get those checks?
Well, I mean, it just go back to the leverage issue, right? You have these things. You use this against McConnell and the right. You have to use your leverage, and again, they're not doing that. And yes, while I don't necessarily like that statues are named and certain monuments are named with names that are offensive to a lot of people, I think that's also an issue. But right now we're talking about something about saving people's lives, and we're talking about a $2,000 check that means the world to so many people. So I think that you kind of have to prioritize, right? And it's to me what we're going to be what we saw yesterday too is that the Democratic Party comes together with the establishment Republicans too, and they completely shafted Sanders and any effort he was trying to do to help people. And by the way, I still feel like what Sanders was doing is a little late, but at the same time, he was the only one. He is the most progressive senator we have right now, and he was joined by very few other senators, including Elizabeth Warren, who actually were trying to do the decent thing, and even then, that was an impossible task.
Yeah, and that brings you to the next point. However, the Democratic whip, Senator Dick Durbin, is pushing to pass the override of Trump's veto of the NDAA. This is essentially pulling the rug out from Sanders and Markey to plan to hold leverage against the Republicans. So it started right there. Nicole Alexander completes with, "We will know tomorrow when the Senate resumes session and whether the Dems in the Senate will join Sanders and Markey in delaying the veto override, bring up some new way to leverage Senate Republicans, or accept the $2,000 payments if they include Trump's wish list." By the way, McConnell then wanted to bring something else, his own bill, to the floor, which seemed like a moot point because it would have to go back to the House because it had to be appropriated, and they wouldn't be able to do that because the House is in session and is done. But it was to repeal 230, keep the names of the Confederate stuff, but also have a bipartisan commission to investigate election fraud, which I think was full of shit. I looked at it. It's something that these establishment players just want to act like they're looking at it and then sweeping it under the rug. So I wasn't excited about that, even though I'm an election integrity guy. And what's going on in the hearings right now is just amazing. The Georgia hearing was just great, and there's more stuff to this as well that we'll get into. Georgia has been playing fugazi games the whole way. But that was Nicole Alexander. And she was also retweeted by the Teflon Don, Donald Trump, retweeted our friend Nicole Alexander, Mrs. Fisher, and then Bernie Sanders uses her stuff on the floor. So I asked her, I said, "How do you feel about that?" She goes, "I don't know how I feel about that." She was definitely more tickled when Bernie Sanders also brought it on the floor. So she was like, "Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was awesome." So big ups to her, and big ups to the work she's been doing, whatnot. Now, the part we got to really talk about, fam, too, was the vote today, because this is what it really was all about. McConnell, the way he gets this through was procedural, not unanimous consent.
Yes.
So what he had to do was pretty much put a vote on the floor to have debate on overriding the veto. Now, with the overriding of the veto, and I let me get this straight. I think there's a term that they use. I want to make sure if I can find it real quick. It's called cloture, okay, of something of that sort. Meaning that McConnell, being the leader, can limit the debate to 30 hours. So therefore, you can't filibuster it longer than 30 hours. So this debate that came up, this vote that came up, right? If in fact the Democrats held the line, went together and said no on this, they would be stuck in the same spot playing ping pong. This is where they bent the knee as well. And I put this up here from Common Dreams. I mean, this is just a shame right over here. And it says, after GOP reportedly blocked the vote on the $2,000 checks, 41 Democrats joined McConnell to advance the $740 billion Pentagon bill. And it was Chuck the Schmuck, who was acting once again, Kabuki Theater, your new vice president to be, maybe Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, you know what I'm saying? They had 6 Republicans join 5 Democrats and the 1 independent, Bernie Sanders. So if the Democrats wanted to hold the line, they would have voted no. But they bent the knee, essentially meaning within 30 minutes, there's got to be a day rest in between, so they can't start the debate tomorrow. They'll start the debate on Friday. By Saturday, as we are touching down in D.C., they will be passing and overriding his veto for the defense budget, and then they can go home and you only get the plebs $600.
And this is exactly what's showing us that these politicians are actors. They're not public servants. Who are they serving? Because if you look at the vast majority of people who want a stimulus, the public, everybody is saying $600 is not enough. So who are you serving then? Obviously, we know who they're serving, but at the same time, it's I don't think it's ever been more clear to people than right now. This is the time to push anything you want. Like if we're talking about direct action, so many things that a lot of the left loves to talk a big game about, but when it comes time to actually do these things, a lot of people dismiss it, right? And we're going to be talking about that as well. But Pasta, I mean, this just goes to show you, don't talk to me about the Georgia Senate race. Don't talk to me about the bullshit of helping elect more Democrats. Why? So they can do this? This is who the Democratic Party is. This is who they are. They're showing you exactly who they are. Why continue to support them? Tell me what will fucking change if we get a majority of Democrats in the Senate. Tell me, because they're voting right in line with the establishment Republicans. So stop with the bullshit of asking me to make phone calls for neoliberals who literally fall in line right with conservatives when it comes to giving people who are losing everything they have any sort of help. And that includes Medicare for all. It includes the stimulus. It includes anything. But they have zero issues funding their defense industry, projects that they have. Zero issue on any of that. It's disgusting, and that was what was proved yesterday, Pasta. And I don't understand how you could ever advocate for the Democratic Party reform after these last few days of what we've seen them do, how we've seen them fall in line. People like Amy Klobuchar, who ran for president, Kamala Harris, all of these senators, where are they? They're nowhere to be found. So stop asking me to vote for a Democrat just because they're a Democrat by name.
Yeah. Well, I know what we'll get from it, fam, if we get for a Democrat. We'll get nice, fluffy virtue signaling all the time. And a lot of this has to do with, there are some people out there, so we have to start paying attention. We have to start watching more C-SPAN. And I think in the next year, we have to do more reporting on what goes on in the Senate floor.
Yes.
And learning and understanding ourselves, these procedures, because they put up this kabuki theater so each side can blame each other. Meanwhile, they're working together. They understand the procedural stuff. And we get nothing. No populist things ever get passed. I mean, once again, McConnell is a lot to blame on this. His constituents needed this money, but the Democrats didn't hold the line. Chuck Schumer put up that vote for unanimous consent because he knew it was going to get opposed, right?
Exactly.
And then when it was time for him to hold the line, he bends the knee. So did Kamala Harris. So did Amy Klobuchar. Why do this? I mean, because you're working for your donors, and we know why.
And stop being surprised. Yeah. This is what happens. Rinse, repeat. Democrats screw the American people over. Oh, my God, I can't believe they did that. Oh, let's all be mad and angry at them. Oh, let's continue voting for them. Let's continue putting people into the Democratic Party. Rinse, repeat. Oh, they screwed us again. Oh, let's get mad and have outrage. And then nothing changes. Rinse and repeat. It's happening over and over and over and over again. And we still have people preaching the same tired old tactics of Democratic Party reform. When is it going to be enough? When is it going to be enough? If it's not enough now in a pandemic, in a COVID crisis that has the economic crisis, in my opinion, has been far worse than anything we've seen, and it's going to get even worse. When is the right moment then to fight for any of these things? When is it? Because if it's not this, I'm waiting for somebody to tell me when that moment will be.
Well, they're going to say Orange Man bad, Mitch McConnell bad. They're going to do their thing.